we're live. Hi guys. Okay, so I'm very happy to have been invited to do this live feed for CCAP. I love working with them, and back in the day before the pandemic, we did some very cool live things together. So everybody, welcome. I hope that you're all going to hang out with me for a little while. We're going to cook some wonderful vegan food. I think that during the time of a pandemic, it's one of the most important things we can do is think about how we're nourishing our bodies and how we're feeding ourselves. And in light of the pandemic, there's also, as I'm sure you've all heard on the news, a meat shortage, which is terrible news for some people, but I gotta say, it's been great news for us vegans out there because, you know, we start to see the world in a different way, right? So I teach a lot of young chefs joining the business, whatever that business is gonna look like after the pandemic. But I think that one of the things that's important is the young chef who can prepare real vegan food is going to be the young chef that gets the job over the young chef who cannot, right? Because customers like me and many, many millions of people like me are not going away. Even people who are not vegan like to try vegan food when they go out to dine, and they don't want, particularly people who are really vegan like me, we don't want a baked potato and artfully arranged snow peas as my dinner, or pasta with broccoli again, or my worst offender, grilled zucchini platter. Come on, man, we gotta be able to do better than this. There's so many options out there. Hi, everybody. There's so many options out there for plant-based food. So we're gonna do a plant-based protein dish, and then we're gonna do a dessert. And then if you have questions and you wanna ask me some questions, I'll be here for the whole hour. Now, here's an interesting thing about this recipe we're about to make. It's a chickenless salad, and it's made with tofu. And I was hired to cook for a big vegan conference several years ago, and I've been making this recipe for years, and it changes every time I make it. Different veggies, different whatever, different seasonings. But I made it and put it out on the salad bar, and the organizer of the event came in the back and fired me. Said, pack your stuff, pack up your knives and go. And I said, well, wait a minute. And he said, what is wrong with you putting chicken salad out for this vegan conference? I'm like, no, it's not chicken. And he's like, well, we certainly think it's chicken. And I said, well, you'd certainly be wrong. It's not chicken. So very long story short, he didn't get fired. And we ended up with this great recipe. And how you season it depends on your taste and how much like chicken you want it to taste. I'm not a big fan of fake foods, like fake cold cuts, fake burgers, fake ice cream, because usually it's really highly processed. I think the more whole you can make your food, the better off that you will be. So let's get started. We're going to start with the main ingredient in this dish, which is baked tofu. This is baked tofu. You can buy it in a shop. You can bake it yourself. You just marinate tofu slices in soy sauce, fresh ginger juice, water, and whatever other seasonings you want. You marinate it for about 10 to 15 minutes, pop it under the broiler for a few minutes each side, because what you want in this packaged tofu that I use, what you have is this nice brown, sort of like crust here. And that's gonna give us the look that we want. Now I'm gonna change this camera a little bit so you can see what I'm doing on the board. With any luck, I'll be able to do this. Usually I have help, but today, not so much. Okay, we're gonna see if you can, okay. I'll hold it up. So I'm gonna take this tofu, you can sort of see. I'm gonna take this tofu, and instead of just cutting it into chunks like people do when they cook with tofu, I'm gonna shred it into irregular pieces, and I'll show you this again. Sort of like looking as though you have taken white meat chicken and shredded it. And this recipe is very cool, but it also kind of freaks me out a little bit because it does resemble so much of chicken. So I'm sorry I'm looking down while I'm cutting the tofu. I'm not one of those chefs who can look up while I'm slicing. I've lost way too many pieces of my fingers like that. So I'm going to put it into a bowl and show you how it looks. So you can see, like, it's like shredded pieces, right? They're very irregular. It's not just like a chunk, chunks. I mean, you could do it with chunks, but since we're calling this vegan chickenless salad, it's kind of nice when it looks like sort of shredded chicken. So you all can see that. Okay. So now, doing that thing that I'm obsessive about when I'm cooking, which is cleaning my cutting board in between each vegetable that I cut, which does two things for me. One, keeps my area nice and orderly so I don't, have a panic attack in the middle of cooking. And B, it helps to keep my flavors sort of separate, right? It keeps the flavors, the scallion like the scallion, the tofu like the tofu, and you're never standing here with stuff everywhere and then you're going to get into a panic, right? So the next thing I'm going to add to my dish is scallion. You may use shallots, red onions, chives, whatever floats your boat, but you want to give the salad a little bit of bite. So we're going to do that by slicing scallions on an oblong. So you have these sort of slender pieces. You don't want to put big chunks of anything that's sort of peppery. So you don't want to use like a big chunk of onion or a big chunk of shallot. Shallots in this is great. So are Vidalia onions, which are in season right now, so if you can get your hands on them, go for it. And they're going to go right on top of our tofu, and I'll show you again. See? It's right on top of the tofu. Easy peasy so far. Now we want to give the salad a little bit of crunch. So I'm going to use half of a celery stalk. I don't need the whole thing. I mean, there's crunch, and then there's everyone thinking they're eating celery salad instead of a tofu chicken salad. And so, again, I'm going to slice this on thin angles so that I can have like a similar long, elegant sort of cutting style. And so, I'll show you this real quick too. So you can see like the celery are like long, thin pieces, right? Okay, good. Clean the board. And then I'm not putting a whole lot more in here. You can put roasted peppers. You can put shredded carrots. You can put Granny Smith apples and walnuts and make it like a Waldorf salad. You can do anything you want once you have this sort of base that you like. I'm going to add, because they're gorgeous, these little miniature San Marzano tomatoes. I love them, and they're sweet, and yes, this time of year they're hothouse tomatoes, but some recipes just call our name for tomatoes, and so you use hothouse until they come into season, depending on where you are in the world. I mean, here in Philly, my garden is barely taking root, although I do have 12 strawberries on my plant. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I can't wait for the squirrel in my yard to enjoy them. So, I'm going to keep the tomatoes long and slender too, even though, they could have been cut in a different way. I like everything in the dish to be long. So these are like quartered of these cherry tomatoes, right? Okay. Then we're going to take and put a little bit of baby arugula into this dish. So, and I'm running out of mixing room, so actually have, and then I have no mix room, which is a drag. Okay, so everything's in this bigger bowl now. So we're also going to take and put into this some fresh arugula, and that's going to help us to digest the protein in the tofu and also the fat that's going to be in the dressing, right? It's really important when you're considering food and when you're balancing a meal, and we do this instinctively, but when you kind of know about it, you don't do it just instinctively. You do it because it makes sense, right? Nothing in nature is arbitrary. So we're taking and adding arugula, which is slightly bitter. You could use watercress, escarole, you could use a bitter herb, whatever you like. Some people use basil, although it's not really bitter. But when you add something like arugula to a dish like this, you're helping to create better digestion. And you see it all the time. Bitter salads have an olive oily kind of dressing, right? So we're just going to give it a rough chop. Now, if you're using a metal knife, you have to hand tear your arugula, because if you chop it, the arugula will take on a metallic-y flavor. but I'm using a ceramic knife. So ceramic, I can cut whatever I want because it doesn't leave an aftertaste behind. So that goes into our bowl. So now the bowl, it's growing. Everything's growing. And speaking of which, my husband just showed up with a bunch of escarole, which will be escarole and beans tonight for dinner. So there you go. I'm doing this today without my camera guy who just walked in the door. Anyway, all right, so now the next thing to go in is sort of, I build the dressing. And I'm, how do I put this? So I'm a lazy chef. If I don't have to do a step or dirty a dish, I don't do it. Until the pandemic, I was not a great veggie washer. I didn't think it was a big deal, but it actually is. So I wash everything now. So everything here that I've prepped, I've washed. But on another note, I'm lazy. So if I can build the dressing in the salad, I'm building the dressing in the salad. You can do it separately, whisk away, you know, whatever you want to do. Do it as you like, but it's dressing. You know, we're not splitting the atom here or creating world peace. It's a dressing. When you cook, cooking is not so much about whether or not you are adept at every single thing. Cooking is passion. People who cook, chefs, home cooks who are really great at what they do, have a passion for it that is unrivaled. Otherwise, who would take a job in a hot, sweaty kitchen where you work yourself to the bone and you get paid very poorly? You have to love it, right? So let your technique, it's sort of like a great actor. A great actor preps for their role and does the training and whatever, but then when they get on the set, they forget. They throw it all out and you're present. So if you have your techniques down, you know your knife skills, you know what food does, you know how it tastes. If you have a food you've never worked with before, what do? You taste it. You taste it raw. Not animal food, of course, ew. But a vegetable you've never had, like a Belgian endive, suppose you've never had it. Taste it. How will you know how it behaves if you don't taste it, right? So we taste everything, we play, but you play. You get all of your knowledge that you can so that you can afford to have fun with this. This is supposed to be fun. All right, so we're gonna take some organic pickle relish. You can just chop pickles too, but and pink Himalayan have a sweeter taste. A lot of chefs like it because of that. When you're seasoning a dish like this, if you're using baked tofu that either you baked or you bought, remember, it's been marinated in soy sauce. So you're not gonna need a ton of salt. So you gotta kind of adjust knowing that it was marinated. And then the next thing we're gonna add, which is kind of I'm Italian, and Italians don't eat a lot of mayonnaise. You know, we make potato salad with olive oil, we make pasta salad with olive oil. We don't really use a lot of mayonnaise. In fact, growing up, we never ever used it, ever. My Italian grandmother and Italian mother never cooked with mayonnaise, and my grandfather, who came here from Naples, was amazed at mayonnaise and at prices in American supermarkets. So he would come home after having bought cases of things that we would never use, right? So one day he came home with a case of mayonnaise, and my grandmother said, "Ma Gerardo, what are we gonna do with this?" And he said, "I don't know, but the price was amazing." When they both passed away and we cleaned out the basement, the case of mayonnaise, seriously out of code now, was still in the basement. So I'm just mixing this up now. And I'm just going to take some of it and put it into a little bowl so you can see it. So that you can see, like, the colors are beautiful. It looks really fresh. It looks like it would be super satisfying, which it will. I may as well mound it all in there. I thought this bowl would be, well, anyway. The bowl's big enough. It just wasn't big enough for mixing. I'm not a good judge. Lazy, not a good judge. Gosh, what else, right? So there's our tofu chicken salad. I mean, it's, you know, it's simple, it's quick. You can bake the tofu if you want to or buy it, but you can put it in bread, take it with you to a picnic. You can also, one of my favorite ways to serve it is to take Belgian endive, which you mentioned earlier, and take a little bit of the tofu chicken salad and put it into like a little boat and serve it. I mean, we normally in our house, we bake bread every week, so we usually serve this on homemade sourdough bread, but you can also just serve it like this on a little, you know, like as an appetizer on a little endive boat. And there you go. So that's our one dish. Now the next dish we're going to work on is a dessert. And hon, can you come help me with this one thing, if we can, or so we can see the stove? Or let me talk about it first. I'm good, I got it. Never mind, I got it. So this next dish is a no-bake chocolate dessert. And in all the years I've made it, which are many, many years, no one has ever not liked it. It tastes like Reese's peanut butter cups with crunch in them, but they're good for you. They're called Asteroids, and they're called Asteroids for a very specific reason, which you'll see in a minute. But the ingredients are very simple. We have peanut butter. And did you know, by the way, you guys, if you store your peanut butter upside down, you never have to stir it. It stirs itself. And that's if you buy real peanut butter. If you're buying things like Jif and Skippy, don't. Okay. Buy better peanut butter, or buy peanuts and grind them in a blender and make your own peanut butter. So we are going to take some peanut butter, about a half cup. You know, carefully measured. I'm not a big measurer. Although I was a pastry chef, I'm really just not a big measurer. You know, it's like you kind of eyeball it. I've been doing what I do for a very long time. So measure until you know the recipe, and then you're free to have fun. Then I'm going to add to it a half cup of brown rice syrup. Now look at the texture of this, right? This looks liquidy like honey. See that? So brown rice syrup is made by taking short grain brown rice, fermenting it with cultured rice, and then cooking it until it becomes a syrup. And what you have is a glucose-based sweetener that's about 70% complex carbohydrate and the rest simple carbohydrate. And what that means to you is it's not so much of an insulin trigger. It does have calories, sorry. But it's a better quality sweetener. It's fermented, so it's a little easier. And then the last half cup that I'm going to add to this is dark chocolate chips. This is Lily's, and I use Lily's because it's fair trade and it's sweetened with stevia, meaning that there's a little bit less calories in it, and it has a really great flavor. The woman who developed it is a dear friend of mine, and she figured out how to make a stevia sweetened chocolate that doesn't make you know that it's stevia sweetened. So we're going to take that, and it's going to go over like a medium heat on the stove. And we're going to cook it until it becomes goopy, which means everything melts together. The peanut butter, the chocolate. I'm going to see if I can turn this camera so you can see what I'm doing at the stove. Nope, not yet. Okay, now we're at the stove. All right. So when I do this, I know I'm not quite on the camera, but that's all right. When I do this, you want to stir the entire time that you're making this dish, right? Because if you don't, the nut butter will stick. Because you don't want this to melt too fast. You want the flavors to kind of blend. The chocolate, the peanut butter, and the sweetener, you want them to blend together. And we're almost there. It's getting very goopy. My girlfriend and I came up with this product this recipe quite many years ago when she owned a natural food store and I was her, I would never use the term chef. I had a crock pot, a toaster oven, and a 2-burner electric burner. You know what I'm saying? And we did 300 lunches a day. So, I'm going to bring this back over to my board and turn the camera back. I think I can do that. That's close enough. So, see how it looks? It's all melted and goopy. Okay. Now, to this, we are going to add 1.5 cups of brown Rice Krispies cereal, right? So, instead of just regular Rice Krispies, they're brown Rice Crisps. It's just puffed brown rice cereal. And that goes right into our chocolate. And now you mix until you have a sort of well-incorporated goopy mess. And then you'll see why we called them asteroids. This was way, way back, before some of you were even born. And we were, shall we say, altering our consciousness on a regular level. On a regular basis, we were having at it. So we were making these one night, very late, in her store. And now I'll show you why they're called asteroids. Okay, you ready? I have to wet my hand. You need to wet your hands when you make these, guys. Okay. So now you're going to take, now carefully, because this is still a bit warm. So you're going to take some of the chocolate, and you're just going to roll it in your hands. Like this, until it forms a sphere. You see? That's an asteroid. I mean, to us, we thought it looked like an asteroid. And they set up really well. Like, they'll set pretty quick. So I'm going to get a plate to put them on. And then I'm going to roll these. Ugh. I really thought I was ready. Okay. I'm going to roll these, put them on the plate, and while I'm doing that, which is like watching paint dry, if you have questions about either something I did today, questions about cooking for vegans, just pop them up on the screen and I'll answer them as best I can. Anybody? No? Okay. Well, all right, then I'll just roll asteroids. But, so, when you are thinking about vegan food or cooking vegan food, one of the things that people talk about the most is whether or not we get enough protein, right? Drives me crazy after all these years. Hi, Carol. As a vegan, it drives me crazy. Because the truth of the matter is there's protein in every single thing you eat except fruit. So, you do have to keep wetting your hands because the asteroids stick. You can also press them in a pan and cut them. What's the most versatile ingredient I can use in vegan cooking? You mean outside of really great olive oil? The most versatile, anything. You know, I mean, the whole grains, great olive oil, vegetables, sweeteners. It's a whole repertoire. There's kind of like not one really versatile ingredient. I mean, tofu tastes like anything. You can make tofu taste like anything. Chicken, right? Obviously. People freeze it and it becomes sort of more shredded when you want to use it, and it's more like chicken. Stuff like that. The ingredients for asteroids are brown rice. Everything's it's a half, and one. So it's a half cup of brown rice syrup, a half cup of brown rice syrup, half cup of peanut butter, a half cup of dark chocolate chips, and 1.5 and find, hi Amelia, and find a million tofu recipes that you can use. I will advise you one thing with tofu, and it's something that has a long history in my family. Don't ever make tofu cutlets with a blueberry chutney. So I was trying to accommodate and change a pork recipe to be vegan, and I thought it was a pork chop with blueberry chutney, and I thought, won't that be amazing as tofu with blueberries? It was the only time in my very long marriage where my husband said, honey, could we never have this again? So we didn't. We haven't. TVP isn't something that I use at all. I think it's too highly processed. I don't like that quality of soy for people. I think it's, not necessarily great for our wellness. So it's not something that I use, right? Holly, I'll get back to you on beans. Kimmy, you could not use, you could use quick oats, but they won't be Asteroids. They'll be something else, which is not a bad thing, but they'll be something else. Hold on. They'll just be something else. What you can do with I guess you could. They'll just, instead of having crunch, they'll be chewy, right? They won't have crunch. They'll just be like gooey, and they may not set up. It's the chocolate chips and the Rice Krispies that kind of help it to all set up and become something, that's like a truffle. In fact, at the holidays, what I do with these is very often I will roll them in coconut, roll them in cocoa powder, like to make them look fancier, like truffles. Soy intolerant, then TVP is not for you either, my friend, because TVP is, there's soy in there, as far as I know. I mean, they call it textured vegetable protein, but there is soy in it, so unless you're finding one that's not, which is possible because I don't use it, you might want to skip that. So you could always do this as a lentil salad. You can cook lentils and do like a lentil Waldorf with walnuts and apples, the arugula or basil. You can do it a lot of ways and not use tofu. Tofu and tempeh are just so easy for everyone to use, but if you're soy intolerant, you kind of have to find another way to do your thing, right? Does that help? Okay. Hi, Single Baker. How are you? So here's how they look when they're finished. I can't tip them too much or they'll fall. Ta-da. So these are Asteroids now that they're made, and they take about 20 minutes to really set and become like a truffle, but it's very hard. Most people just eat them when they're goopy. It doesn't matter. Okay, so all soy products, so tofu, tempeh, miso, soy sauce, all off the table for you. So you want to season with salt, obviously. Be careful with things like aminos that people add to their food when they can't use soy sauce or don't want to use soy sauce, because there's soy in that too. So you got to kind of be, they are, Lewis, they are the OG. You got to be a little bit careful with ingredients. You got to really look. If you see something with TVP or textured vegetable protein, you can be pretty guaranteed that there's soy in there. So if you're really that intolerant, you got to really read some labels, which, vegans are used to. We read labels like crazy, even in places like Whole Foods where you would think you wouldn't have to. We read labels, so we are. So, any other questions? Because I'm done. Anything else? Let's see how much time. Oh, okay. We have a half hour. You guys want to talk about anything else? Otherwise, I can go on talking about what it's like to be a vegan with travel, the modern world. We're facing a time when people really need to think about their immune function in a way that they may never have thought about it before. Right, your immune system is, yes, there's soil in a lot of things. We have to think about our immune function in a very different way now. We have to really be conscious of what supports us and what doesn't. You have to be really careful with added sugars, simple sugars, white flour, things like that. You have to be careful with a lot of animal foods because they make the body work too hard, and it's, makes your immune function smaller. Think of the body as my DVDs, I have DVDs on my website. Anyway, when you think about the body, you have to think of it, first of all, as miraculous, right? It cleanses itself. It knows how to react to things. It knows how to pull itself together when you've done something that it doesn't like. But it's a machine with many, many, many moving parts, just like any other machine. So the more you wear it down, the more quickly it wears down. So you have to kind of take care of yourself from the inside out. And that's how you age well, look well, function well, stay fit, right? That kind of thing. Best egg substitutes. I do use flax. I have used flax, but flax is unreliable in my opinion, right? So you can use flax and whip it and it gets like egg whites. The thing I found to be more reliable is chia seeds. Soak them for a little while and give them a little bit of a whip. And then they seem to work every single time. They are the reason that the biscotti I make are as crisp as if there were eggs, right? So I find flax is good, but chia seems to really be the most reliable. The recipes will be on Instagram. They're also on my website. You can find them on Christina Cooks anytime you want to. Best breakfast. Well, it depends on what you're thinking. If I'm in Italy, my best breakfast is espresso and a biscotti. But day to day, the best breakfast to keep your immune system strong and the body functioning well is a soft grain porridge, the texture of oatmeal, but made from a whole grain like millet or brown rice or quinoa, served with lots and lots of veggies. And I know some people go, really, a savory breakfast? Like, that's kind of weird, but it's not. We eat things like omelets and home fries and toast, right? So we eat a breakfast that is a little more easy on the digestion and nourishing. And the other thing to remember is you really can't skip breakfast. If you get up and you don't eat till 4 o'clock, you still had breakfast. If your first food of the day is a martini, that was your breakfast, right? Breakfast is breaking the fast. When you wake up, your blood sugar is a little bit low. So instead of something that challenges digestion, we use something that's a little bit easier. Aquafaba. I don't love it. I mean, it's fine. I can. I have used it. I tend to not use confectioner sugar, which is used a lot when people sweeten their aquafaba. And I have found that coconut sugar, which I really like, has a little bit of fat in it, and that tends to deflate the aquafaba. For me, as somebody who is not really overly complicated in the way I cook, it's too much work. It's just way too much work for me. It's a wonderful thing if you want to do it. It's just way too much work for me. If you can find a way to do it that's healthy and doesn't use a ton of sugar, go for it. I mean, I've made meringues with it, but I was never a meringue person anyway. Like, I was never a big... But I will tell you a funny story about a meringue if you want to hear it. And then I'll answer about GMOs and eggs. So, my sister-in-law is a great doctor. And I'm not going to tell this story. It's too mean. Anyway, let's just say it was a bad meringue story. Okay, so tablespoon. 3 tablespoons water to... that's a heavy one. Carol, I tend to use a teaspoon to 3 teaspoons for an egg, but for like binding, this would help you with rising. So I tend to use it a little bit lighter. I used to do it exactly that way, 3 tablespoons of water to a tablespoon of chia, but it feels like it's too much. Like it's too like thick and goopy, right? And you asked about GMOs earlier. So GMOs are genetically modified organisms, and the truth is we don't know. We don't know what they do. We don't know if they're good for the environment. We don't know anything, you know. And the bad news is all of the studies that you read that tell us about the benefits of GMO are funded by the very people that make GMOs. So it's sort of like the inmates running the asylum, in my opinion. And do we know if GMOs will be bad for us or not bad for us? I don't know. Like, I don't know. They're saying that they're more nutritious, but they're not. They're saying that it will eliminate hunger in the world. Not so far. They're saying that GMOs allow farmers to use fewer pesticides, but pesticide use by farmers is up 85% because the weeds have become resistant, right? So, you know, so GMOs are something I think we have to really keep our eye on, and until they can tell me something definitive, I'm going to avoid them like the plague. How do I feel about Beyond Meat and Impossible Meats? Well, I'm of 2 minds. So the first part is, I think anything that helps people to eat fewer burgers is a great thing. It's a great thing. Don't eat the burgers. You know, it's less impact on your health, right? To eat a As great as something that's not refined or a bean and grain burger that you make in your own kitchen. Are they delicious? Yeah. I mean, I've had the Impossible Burger once at I was gonna say in a bar, but it's a bar restaurant. It was with a bunch of people from my TV show, and I actually sent it back because it's so real, although I haven't had meat in 30 years, so maybe it's not. But to me, it was so real that I thought they served me the wrong thing. And the waiter said they get this all the time from people that they think it's actually a burger. So I'm very happy that people are eating less meat. You're right, they have tons of sodium. But you know, they have a very high footprint, a very big footprint and impact on the planet because they're so highly processed, right? The more something is processed, the bigger its footprint. So, but I don't think people are making them because they think they're environmentally better or more noble. They're making them because, one reason only, they make them because vegans aren't going away. And because there's really not a whole lot of places for the food industry to grow. You may as well grow in plant-based because there's a ton of us out here wanting more options than I talked about in the beginning. A baked potato and artfully arranged snow peas. So, you know, there's kind of this whole... I'm kind of paradoxical about them. I love and hate them at the same time. You know, like to me, I also think, and this is very esoteric, so feel free to remotely roll your eyes. I also think that when you are eating a lot of that fake food, fake burgers, fake hot dogs, fake cold cuts, fake whatever, fake roasts, your thinking doesn't change, right? Your thinking stays the same. You want a burger, you want French fries, you want whatever. I want you to move to whole, unprocessed food. Right? One of the things that I love about Chef Rich Landau, who runs Veg Restaurant here in Philadelphia, is that he doesn't take a Brussels sprout and try to tell you that it's a Swedish meatball. He celebrates its Brussels sproutness. He celebrates what celeriac tastes like and can do so that people who may not buy those veggies because they don't know what to do with them have an experience that's amazing with a veggie. So for me, we have to slowly as a culture, and trust me, it'll be slow, move away from those highly processed foods and more into real, whole, unprocessed foods. Yeah, I agree. Black bean burgers or quinoa burgers are both high protein, but you know, I always make sure, Carol, that my beans are still, like you can still see there's beans, and basically it's a black bean patty. You know, we call it burgers, we do whatever, and you don't want to always be the freak at the, you know, picnic who brings a bowl of seaweed, but there's a medium between them. So, you know, like I do make burgers in the summer to throw on the grill, but we make them. I make them from scratch and, you know, use quinoa to hold them together, and that's always kind of a better way to go. The less packaging we buy, the better for the planet. I mean, look what's happened. If there's an upside to this pandemic, it's this. The canals in Venice are clear like Caribbean waters again, and the swans are back who haven't been there in decades because of pollution, right? Look at the maps of California pre-pandemic and California now with cars off the road. And I'm not saying we should never leave our homes or drive again, but we have to kind of find a happy medium. Statistics show us that if every grown man, woman, and young person ate one meatless meal a week, one out of 21, it's the equivalent of taking 4 to 6 million cars off the road. So if we can come out of this pandemic with a commitment even like that everybody once a week chooses one meatless meal, the planet wouldn't be so quick to go off a cliff again, right? We're not out of the woods with climate change, but we are changing things slowly. So let's say you're completely inspired right now. Oh my God, I can't wait to become a vegan. What do? Do you go home, clean your cupboards out, and just, you know, bail on everything you ever loved? Nice thought, but within 2 weeks you'll be saying, I don't remember her name, but I wish she never breathed because I'm crazy right now. You want to be gentle with yourself. You want to take a look at your pantry, and each week take out an ingredient that you know doesn't serve you, get rid of it, and replace it with something healthier. In 6 months, you'll have a whole new pantry and a whole new way to cook. If that's too much for you, eat vegetables. Just add vegetables to your current way of eating. Apparently, Americans overall only about 19% of us get more than one serving of vegetables a day. And of that 19%, the 80% of those get those vegetables in the form of fried potatoes. So we really need to do better with veggies. You walk into a supermarket and the produce aisle looks like Disney World, right? They practically have water rides. They're amazing. They're gorgeous. Who's buying it? Right? Most people buy it. They get all enthused. They watch a cooking show, whatever. They buy all this stuff. They don't know what to do with it. They throw it away. Right? 40% of food in America gets wasted. So, you have to figure out a way to kind of slowly make the change. How would I make a whole nut burger like... Oh, easy. So, you're going to cook well, you can't only use nuts. You're going to have to use some beans or some oats or a cooked grain like millet to kind of hold them together. They do need a binder. So unless you can tell me specifically your recipe, I'm not really sure, how to do that. You could probably bind them with chia if you soaked chia. Or Bob's Red Mill makes an egg replacer that for every tablespoon of it, that's equivalent to an egg, and you mix it with a little water. And it works really great, actually. I have to say, I love it. It's my favorite egg replacer. I use chia because people can't always get Bob's, but you can get it online. So it's my favorite egg replacer. It's the least refined, the least processed. You could probably do it with that. Anytime you need an egg replacer, you can either use chia or Bob's Red Mill. And in a pinch, flax will work well enough, especially in something like a nut burger. I don't know it. Tell me a little more, like what's in it? Are the nuts ground up like a meal? Because that's pretty easy. Like a nut bread. So there's flour in it. No? Yes? Give me a hint. If there's flour in it like a nut bread, then that's easy. Use baking powder and baking soda. For every egg, you use a teaspoon of baking powder and a half teaspoon of baking soda. And that's the equivalent of an egg in baking for rising. For binding, you need to use like flax or chia. Or an egg replacer. That'll help you bind. Sometimes I use both, depending on the cake. If I want something really high and moist, I'll use both to kind of make that happen. And it's not a lot of work. You know what I mean? I'm not making extra work for myself. And having been in pastry, it's sort of like you have to learn how to cook with the foods you're going to get rid of, so that you understand how they work, so that you can, right? So you can figure out how they work so you can substitute. That's the best advice I can give you. And as a conventional pastry chef moving into being vegan and healthy, the joke in our house is we threw a lot of batter out the back door of disasters, right? So it's that kind of, I know this recipe. It's raw nuts with egg. That's going to be a tough one. Let me think about that for a minute. Somebody asked something else. Anyway, will I be doing more live videos? I hope so. They're much easier than I thought. I don't know how often, but what we'll do is we'll announce them on my Instagram, which is Christina Cooks, and we'll give you plenty of time. And we'll try to store them in our stories at the end so that you'll be able to see them, afterwards. And I think this one's, I'm supposed to archive this one somehow, unless I screw it up. And so that you guys can watch it later. I like doing them because I haven't taught a live cooking class since December, I think, and January maybe, and I kind of miss, I miss my people. I miss being out there doing what I do, so, Robert, your sister says, bless you for sneezing.
Oh,
So, is there anything else before I let you guys go? Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thanks to CCAP again for inviting me. I cannot wait until I can be with all of you live, not virtually live. And, all work together to make the world a better place. Stay well, stay safe, eat your veggies, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you. This was fun. Thanks a lot, guys. I'm going to figure out how to try to archive this now so you can stay on and make fun of me because I have no idea. So if I hit end, thank you. If I hit end, will it allow me to save it then? Does anybody know? Oh, you're welcome. Does anybody know how to do this? To archive it? They want me to save it so they can use it on YouTube. I have no idea. Well, I know I can send it to stories, right? Bye, Single Baker. Let's see. No, I can't do that. All right, so maybe I'll, all right. All right, I'm gonna end it. So